Hi, my name's Sean Walker, and I'm a Principal Product Excellence Architect and part of the Ranger team here at ServiceNow. This video is a recording of the Live Asset Refresh Request mini-series that was held on August 6, 2025. The video is going to go through a brief presentation and then a live demo on the asset refresh request and some of the other topics that come up along the way relating to that process. Hope you enjoy the video. All right, so this presentation is very much like the presentation that was done on the YouTube video. So hopefully everybody who has registered for this event took the time to watch our YouTube video on the asset refresh request and hopefully has some questions about it. So I'm just going to quickly run through the deck and then I'm going to actually get into the actual demo of the refresh flow. So basically the hardware asset refresh flow is really what's designed to help you asset managers refresh assets, aged assets throughout within their organizations using a standard flow. A lot of companies will do that. They'll refresh out certain, like say, old models of devices with new ones because they're out of warranty, out of support, etc. So this is a built-in flow to help you refresh your assets in bulk, essentially. So the asset managers, can filter and assign assets. So they're going to know which assets are coming end of life or end of their useful life. Kind of gives you that centralized process management, and it really reduces your costs, right? If you're refreshing your assets on a regular basis, you're reducing those maintenance costs and risks of aged assets. So some of the things we're going to cover today, we'll look at the useful life and what that's all about. We'll look at the scheduled retirement, and we'll look at that eligible for refresh flag, which you can use if you want to develop your own flows as well. So again, this is from the, oh, sorry, Jason, did you have a question or? No, yeah, no, okay. So basically this is from the process guide. So you all should have by now downloaded the process guide and have a copy of it and know it off by heart. It's only like 150 pages. You should know every page. No, I'm just kidding. This really is the asset refresh flow, and it's kind of a guidance on how you should think about refreshing your assets, right? You really want to be able to identify those assets that are scheduled for retirement or eligible for refresh. And then you want to go through and determine your procurement requirements. And then you also want to then go ahead and request that hardware. Again, you do have your standard review and approval process, etc. And this is basically what you want to think about for your organization. You want to look at your organization and maybe assign specific different groups, etc., and create your own process for how you refresh assets. Maybe you have to go through a different approval level, etc., etc. But this is a good base process for you to think about and get you started thinking about that refresh process. So now I am going to get out of this and I'm going to get into another in my instance. There we go. Sorry. All right. So what we're going to talk about today, or sorry, I guess I should stop real quick. Does anybody have any questions briefly about the presentation or anything I just talked about?
This is Jen Wenrick
Sure.
from NCR Atlas. Just a quick question.
Sure.
As you're talking through this, not all of us use the procurement module in ServiceNow.
Yep.
So if there's opportunities to touch on how, if you're not
Okay.
using procurement module, how might you go about things, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to come into probably the sourcing piece of it, right? So we can do a lot of this before we would actually get into the procurement
Oh,
module.
absolutely. Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Thanks.
absolutely I do love being able to source. That's one of the best features. And I do understand everybody's got these extra procurement systems, but if you work with a partner, you can sometimes, you can customize that and you can do some integration with your procurement system and kind of have ServiceNow hand off to your procurement system as well. It's not built in out of the box, but you can definitely do that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the scheduled retirement fields and the useful life field. So there's a couple of ways that you should be thinking about how do we want to be able to get into a good cadence of refreshing our assets? And there's a couple of variables, or a couple of fields, I should say, on the asset record, which you can think about using. So maybe when you're procuring your new hardware, if you have standards for how long, we're going to probably talk about laptops today, right? How long do we as an organization want to maintain laptops? I've seen customers go 2, 3, 4, 5 years as their standard, depending, right? Some customers will buy, just stick with the regular warranties from the vendor. Some will purchase extended warranties, etc. So you really need to understand what your policies are, what your process, what you want to do for your organization for refreshing these. So what I would always recommend is, if I know that I'm going to keep these devices for, let's say, 3 years, we're going to go 36 months, we can use the scheduled retirement field, if I can remember where the heck it is. Here it is. You can use the scheduled retirement field, and I would suggest maybe populating that field if you know, and if you're doing potentially some sort of bulk import or something like that of your assets. It's definitely good to, or part of your process, to add a scheduled retirement date if you know at a time of purchase. So that's definitely something, if you're at that stage, right, where we have a mature process for procurement and making sure we're onboarding our assets properly, etc. You can add this to your process to be able to see when you should schedule this for retirement based on your organizational policy. So again, this is a manually populated field. There's nothing that's going to automatically populate this particular field for you. You obviously can set something up in the background, but not out of the box. It's not going to give you that very specific scheduled retirement date. So that's definitely a very useful field you want to think about as you mature out your process. Now, the other thing you can do is, if we know and we have, so a lot, as we try and work towards standardizing our models within our organization, and we have these policies in place that say, yes, we only have maintained laptops for 3 years. After that, we refresh it. You can actually go into the models and you can make a change on the models, which will help trigger this. If we look, we should have an eligible, you see this eligible for refresh field. And this can actually be automatically triggered. And the way it works is, basically we will set up, and I'm actually just going to get out of here and I'm pull up some demo data that I put in the system just so I can show you how that particular eligible refresh works. Trying to remember, I think it was demo tags 500. Let me just group by model. Whoops. Come on. Again, these are live demos, so I will mess up. For anybody else who hasn't attended any of my live demos, I will mess up a few times. So we can see here we've got a bunch of different models that we're going to be dealing with today. And we've got this Latitude Series 570. So say we know that all of these 5570s, we're only going to use them for 36 months. And what I can do here is I can set the useful life of this model to 36 months. So I, as an organization, know I only keep these laptops for 3 years. So I want to set, when the model, you create that model, you go ahead and you set this useful life. And what that's going to do is, there is a job in the background, and I'll pull that up right now. Now, you won't be able to get to this job unless you have admin rights. So if I look at my scheduled jobs, but it still will run, right? So you don't really need to execute it like I am. And then we wait, of course. We have this job, and I don't know why it's called starts with Sam. It just does, even though this talking ham. There's this job called Sam calculate asset refresh eligibility. And we can run this job, and it is set to run weekly. And what this will do is it will check the created date of these assets. And I should have changed some of these. It will try, based off the created date of these assets and the useful life of the model, it will set that eligible for refresh flag to true. So if let's say Oh, I can't change this one. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to change a different model. See, live demos never go as you want. Um, Let me take a look at my other models and see if I can find another one for you. I see a question. Do you need admin job for scheduled or admin role for scheduled jobs? Yes, you do. I'm just gonna. All right, so you can kick yourself off mute too, Tito, if you want to ask these questions as well, because I just caught that one out of the corner of my eye. Let me see if I can find one that.
I have a question. I have a question for you. Why would we use create date instead of acquisition date? Because create date could be after acquisition date in case we merge from other instances.
True. And that is just the way that this particular script is. So I would say if you wanted to switch that, you could by basically changing the scheduled job and changing the parameters. You'd have to, this would be customization to do that.
Okay.
That's just the way it's set up. No saying, it's going to basically trigger, where is the, oh, here, right? It's gonna trigger this script includes, right? And it's gonna do that and should do the check. But that's just how it's set up to do that. So
And
does it
then
have to be created date? Yes. If you want to use out of the box, it has to be created date. That's how it's set up. Does it have to be? No, but if you want it, you would have to make other customizations if you want to change which date it's using.
is there plans to remove the SAM portion of the name of this because it is very confusing when you're
Confusing?
trying to do ham and it's called SAM.
Yeah, I know. If you are changing it, then sure, go ahead. Right?
Okay, so we can change it. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So again, you would want to make a copy of that scheduled job and then
right, and then
disable
do it.
this one and then enable the other one and
Correct.
change.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find an example here of something. These are all recent. Why do these all have recent created dates? We might not be able to show you this today, and I apologize. The joys of live demos. Here we go. Here's an older one. So here's a Lenovo ThinkStation. So let me just see if we got, okay, we got two here. Let me just change the model here, this particular model. And we are going to put useful life of 36 months. I'm going to save that. All right, so now this particular model, it's tied to these two assets. And why did it has the 36 months set for the useful life? And if I trigger this job, it's going to run. And then I don't know how quick it's going to be. This should switch to true. And see, okay, so it's all right. So it switched some of them to true. There it is. So it did switch this one for Jerry Butler to true. So that's basically what's going to happen in the background automatically for you. So you're not going to have to do what I just did, but I wanted to show you what it looks like in execution. So as long as you have a useful life set on the model and out of the box, the created date is older than that useful life of that model, it will trigger that eligible for refresh flag. And then you can use this. Now, what I've seen a lot of customers do is set up custom service catalog items to allow their end users to request their own devices, right? Because you always probably have a ton of people saying, oh, my laptop's 2 years old. Can I get a new one? You can actually set up your own catalog item for them that basically will say, am I eligible for refresh? Yes, then okay, I can go ahead and I can then order a new laptop, or they can keep checking, and until that flag gets set, they can't request a new one. So that's something I've seen a lot of customers do. So that's the eligible for refresh flag. Any
Sure, one
questions on
quick
the?
question. Yeah,
Yes, go
one
ahead.
quick question. So can we set this up based on OS version? Any devices with Windows 10, I just want to get it refreshed with the Windows 11 model, something of that sort. Instead of going by model, can we go by OS version?
You would have to do something custom, but sure, right?
That can
You
also be done.
absolutely could. It would be custom. It's not going to do it out of the box. And it's not, you'd have to basically take that script includes and change it. So you could
Okay.
definitely create your own scripts to flip that flag for you.
So basically, asset refresh we do based on two methods. One is calendar based, which very much what you are showing. Another is performance based as well. So even though it is not 3 years or 2 years old, maybe for some reason it will be a very poor performance.
Yep.
And if we get that performance score, also we do refresh. But do we get that option as well here? Performance based
You're
refresh.
not going. You're not going to get any. Only thing you're going to get out of the box is
That's the calendar based.
is calendar based off created date. Yeah. But again,
Okay.
you can absolutely trigger your own background scripts, right? To do this, right? But it's not out of the box. I'm not saying you can't do it. You just can't do it by default. You turn ham on, it's not going to do it automatically for you. So you can have your developers work on that and set this flag for you. Right.
Got it, Sean. Thanks.
Yeah. And again, now we're going to kick into the service catalog, right? And so I've got another window here that I'm logged in as a ham analyst, right? I didn't want to necessarily do this as a system admin just to show you. So I'm logged into the service catalog again. My service catalog is not fancy. This is just my demo instance. So yours is going to look different, but these are the flows that come out of the box, catalog items that come out of the box with hardware asset management. I have not made any modifications to them. I know there's gonna be lots of questions about, can we add this? Can we add this? Can we add this? Yeah, you can. It's just not there out of the box. So I'm just going through the out of the box today and show you what's there as that base that you can use to basically go ahead and refresh your assets. So you have two different types of refresh. You can do a single model or you can do a multi-model. So we can do multiples at a time. So I'm an asset analyst. I need to go and I need to schedule where I need to work on the asset refreshes for our organization. We need to retire a whole bunch of models or one specific model. And today we're going to use that. I think I'm going to use that 5570, I think it was. Let me just get this up here. I'm going to use some of these as my test subjects today, is some of these models. And we're going to refresh some of them. All right, so I'll probably do this 5570 and look to replace a couple of these. I'm just going to switch this to my other screen so I can see both. Okay, so we're going to do a single model today. And this location, and I can show you a multi-model if we want as well. The location is the location we're doing the refresh for. So where are these devices going to end up, right? So I'm doing a refresh in this particular office. And what am I going to be replacing it with? Well, let's take a look here. I'm going to be replacing it with, I wanted to go with sorry, I'm looking by the screen. The 7450s. This is the model that I'm going to replace these particular assets with. Now I have the ability here to now choose some filters so I can then pick. For example, you could use that eligible for refresh field and then pick some of those assets. Now you can see there's a whole bunch here. And if we remember from when I was looking at these assets before, that eligible for refresh isn't set because I just created my demo data, right? So obviously it's not going to be there. I know this is not a great example. This is the joys of live demos. So what I'm just going to do is look at my location. And I know I'm refreshing the assets in this location. So let's see what assets are in this particular location. And you're not going to be... Oh, here we go. It just took a minute. All right, so here's all of the assets I have in that location. And then so I could even add another filter if I wanted to and say model is, and I want to get rid of those. I don't know, let's say contains. And we could say run this, and now I'm going to see here's all my 5570s. So now as an asset analyst, I could say, okay, I want to replace all of these, or I could replace 1 or 2 or 3, etc. But again, as I said, you could then, you can set up if you have, you likely have your own service catalog. You likely have people who create your catalog items. You can create your own custom catalog items so your end users can go ahead and do it themselves. This is designed as somebody who's an asset, the persona of an asset analyst or an inventory manager or something doing that refresh for your organization. So let's say we want to do these 10. And we go ahead, actually, I'm going to do just a smaller order because I don't want to have to process 10. I'll just change out these two, 501 and 502. But again, as you can see, I can pick as many as I want. And I can go ahead and I can submit this now. And this is basically going to trigger off the refresh flow. So there's 2 flows. One is the hardware refresh flow and one is the hardware refresh line flow, I think it's called. I'm just going to go back and actually show you the multi-model since we're in here. So we can actually do the multi-model flow as well, where here it's a little bit different form where if I want to replace which models, right? So I can do the, what is it? Here we can replace it with this model and which asset do I want to do? We could do, I think I did 500, 501, we'll do 502 here. I can add this one, and then I could also add a second one. I can use the same model. So again, you don't have to use the same model here. You could be doing different models. I just don't have the data to do multiples, but I could do different models and pick different replacement models and replace different assets. And I could, I think it was 503, and I could pick different ones, and it's going to create separate line items for me for each one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and order that now as well. Sorry, somebody's saying something?
No, I was clearing my throat, sorry.
Okay. All right. So now I'm just going to, sorry, go ahead.
Verna here. Yeah. What would be the process for refresh with the intent to purchase, meaning that we are looking to refresh, but we don't have a replacement.
And that's fine. And that's perfectly fine. And that's what's going to happen, right? When you get to, we haven't got to that point where we've had to make the decision of whether we pull from stock or whether we purchase.
Okay, got it.
Right. So we're not at that point in the flow yet, right? We just put the request through. So we're at the very beginning of that flow. And if I switch back to this presentation, right, we can see here we are right at the identify, schedule retirement, and then where is the request? We're kind of looking at the request. We already did the, right? So we're looking at this request process, which is a separate process, right? It's a request hardware process. So we're doing our job as a hardware asset analyst, right? We're saying, okay, all of these ones need to get replaced because they're old. Let's put a request through to replace them. And now it still needs to go through all your approval and financial process, right? Just like any other piece of hardware. Okay, so now I am going to come back in. Again, back in is now my system administrator just because it's easier for me. I guess I could go in as ham analyst, but so I can come back into the hardware asset overview. And if I refresh this, I should see I now have 4 refresh requests that I can address. So I can look at them here and I can see the requested item, right, from both of these 2 that came in, and I can see that they are waiting for approval. These requests are waiting for approval. I always work. Now, again, you could work out of different ways. You can get to requests many, many different ways. I personally get at them. I like getting at them through here. I like looking at the request level, not the RITM level. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So we got these requests 27 and request 28. If I go into them, right? This is going to now they're pending approval. So the request has gone out, right, to Eric here. Eric has to review this particular request for, if I look at the requested item, right, we can see that there should be two items, right? Demo tag 500, demo tag 501. So it's plan and execute refresh of aged assets. So that's what's coming into Eric's queue to review. And he has to go through and review whether or not he wants to approve this. We're going to say yes. He approves this. I'm not used to work. We're going to say yes. He approves this. I'm not logged in as Eric. I'm just doing this as system admin so I can push it through. So Eric goes ahead. He approves this, and it will move it to the next phase. Okay, we're going to do the other one while we're in here. Request 28, right? If we look at the requested items, that should be those two different items we ordered. We should still see them here. Here's the two different ones, right? Demo tag 502, 503. And we're going to go ahead and we are going to approve that one as well. No. As you can tell, I'm used to list view and right clicking. Trying to be good and use the workspace instead of going through the back end. Okay, so now both of those requests should be approved. Yeah, they're both approved. So if we look back here, right, at our request thing, they are in the fulfillment stage. So again, I personally like working in the asset operations view, right? And I can see that these haven't been sourced. And this is where we start talking about, okay, now what do we do? And this is where I do like the procurement plugin. So I apologize, I can't remember who asked about, the other systems, but this is what I like the most about the procurement plugin. And you still can make customizations to, we can still make customizations to push this off to your other systems, but again, it would be customization. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly see. I see some stuff coming in here. I'm just checking, Eric, on your question there. Can we pick asset from a specific purchase order? No, we're not at that point yet. Oh, sorry. Can we pick assets from a specific purchase order? I think you meant, I didn't see that right away. You might have meant when we were doing the actual request. We're actually creating the hardware asset refresh and we're using those filters. Yeah, you should be able to filter off of any field on the asset table. You should be able to filter assets by that. So if purchase order is a field on the asset record. So yes, you could say PO equals this, as long as you populate it, obviously. So, all right. Okay, so where was I? So yes. So now that the request has been approved, by default, if you have the procurement module enabled, it's going to trigger this sourcing request. And again, you can still get this to trigger and then push this off to your other procurement system if you want. So again, depends on where work with a partner if you don't have this to push it off to your procurement system if you need to, or you can do it swivel chair, for example, create the PO in ServiceNow, swivel chair, create the PO in your existing procurement system, that kind of thing. But it's a longer process to get that, but you can absolutely get it to that point where ServiceNow hands off to say your Ariba or some other system. But we're just going to do that in here right now. And we can see we were at this source request items. And this is where you can actually go ahead. And Verna, this is what you were talking about. Right now I have the ability to make the decision. What do I want to do, right? Do I want to consume local stock because I have 39 of this particular 7450 already in stock? Or do I want to trigger a purchase? And I could do either. So depending on how you do it and what you have, you could either also issue a transfer order if you want, right? So depending on how your organization is set up, what you have, how you want to manage it, this is really where you can make that decision. So your fulfillers really want to be educated on what your policies are, etc. This is where we can also start thinking about, you see here, we also now have the source through distribution channels, right? As you start to get more and more into inventory management, if you're large organizations and you have inventory across the globe, for example, right? You might want to think about doing distribution channels. There's definitely videos that we've done on service locations and distribution channels, which can really help in the sourcing process to help your fulfillers source the requested items through what is the most efficient chain, right? So for example, if I'm in North America and the user requesting it's in North America, but the only available inventory is in China, it's probably cheaper to order it rather than transfer it from China, right? So you can use distribution channels to set up that kind of logic. The same thing with the local stock as well. So this you may or may not know. Local stock is looking for a stock room at the same location as the requesting user. So basically, or requested locations. If you remember when we put that fulfillment request in, we put the location of that Calgary, right? That's the location that all of this stuff is happening in. So this sourcing task is looking for available assets in that location. Now, the Calgary office didn't have a local stockroom. So what I did is I set up a service location where one of my central warehouses services that location and many others. So depending on how your organization works, you may or may not have a local stockroom. And again, then you could issue a transfer order if you wanted, or you could set up by behind the scenes service locations for those centralized warehouses to service specific locations. Maybe your technicians are all in one location and they service multiple locations, right? Multiple states, multiple, who knows, right? So depending on how I would definitely recommend watching those videos and working on those. Okay, so I think Philip's answering a question here. So I'll just keep going. Okay, so I'm just going to consume right now from local stock. Is there any questions here, Verna, or anybody else you kind of understand what your options are here?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, because Verna, you would just hit purchase, right? And based on your catalog item, you could pick if you have more than one vendor, how many if you wanted to purchase them. Or you can pick local stock. In this case, I'm just going to pick local stock, and I can reserve them for either the ham analyst, or I could reserve them for specific users and do it that way. I'm just going to reserve them for ham analyst right now because he's the one doing everything. And we're going to hit, what was my mouse? Submit. And now this is going to be sourced. And what it's going to do is it's going to trigger asset tasks, right? So 2 asset tasks have been created successfully for this particular request. Okay, so we can see here, I'm still on the request 27, and it's now triggered these 2 tasks. So I can see these tasks here at the request level, or you can also see those under asset estate. Right, you can see these here under asset tasks, and now I can see I have 2 open tasks right now, which is confirming the assigned assets. Another thing that you could suggest, potentially, it's a good way to do this. This isn't good. If you want, you could also create your own list, like I played and I created my own list and created my own, and you can do some more filtered lists, etc. for yourself if you wanted to create your own list of tasks that might be assigned to you or your group or whatever. So for now, I'm just going to come back into my asset estate. I'm going to look at the first one because again, now it's treating, even though it was one request, right? It was for 2 separate refreshes. So I have 2 separate refreshes happening for different people, right? So just let me pull those back up because we are going to work on, that was 500 and 501, right? All right, so we did 500 and 501, I think, right? So I'm just gonna, it's hard to do this when I can only working on one screen, so I'm gonna move that to the other screen. There, I can see it. Oh, maybe not. All right. So now I'm going to go through and process this 69. And so what it's done is it's automatically assigned this tag of 209 to it. So this is where it's asking you to confirm. So I'm the technician. This task has been assigned to me. I go to the big stockpile of 39 assets. I should be picking number 209 because that's the one it's telling me to pick. But maybe I pick 210 or something like that. So I do have the ability to change it here. So your technician would go through and they could change which particular one they wanted to use, right? So let's just change it for C209 is not there because it already grabbed it. So let's just change it to 210, for example. Okay.
And Sean, to that question I had earlier, if you wanted to pick a certain one based off a PO, you could pick it from there too. In the filter, you could filter out from the PO and then pick that asset you wanted to choose from there.
For a newly created one, yeah, for sure. If
Yeah.
you're the new laptop, yes, you could pick, even when you're requesting, you could pick it off a certain PO. Like if the old laptop, you can pick it off an old PO, or the new one, you can pick off a certain PO, yeah, based on your filters.
Yep.
And I'm just going to close this task now that I've confirmed it, which one I'm doing, and that task is closed. Okay, so if we come back, we'll just take a look at these asset tasks. Now we can just refresh this. And you see that has gone to the close complete, and it's triggered another one for prepare. So you can see the other one's still in the confirm stage, and this one's now in the prepare stage. So again, you can look at this from the request level. Here's request 27, right? So we can come back and see, okay, so now it has gone through and I can see there's this other one here. So again, you can look at it different ways, and you can go through and now you can prepare this asset and stage this asset for deployment. So this is where you're picking which one are you preparing. So who are we replacing this for? And you notice our filters are already set here because when we went through the refresh request, right, we picked this 500 and 501. So these are the two that we're supposed to be refreshing. So which one am I working on right now? I'm working on tag 500. Okay. And then I basically can go ahead and, I can also change the assign. No, that's the task for the assign to close. Okay. And now we'll close all these extra tabs so we can show where we are here. And now it's now closed that task, and it's going on to the next task, which is schedule the asset for deployment. All right, so this is okay. I've staged it, I've prepped it, I got it on the network and all that good stuff, installed all of the software that Candace here needs, right? Candace is the user that's assigned to 500. Sorry, if I show you, I'll just move this screen over here so you can see. So you can see that this demo tag 500, which I'm replacing, right? The 5570 is assigned right now to Candace. Okay. So I can basically see that I'm ready to schedule this refresh with Candace. I go ahead and schedule it. And I schedule it right there. And I can basically now I can close this task. And again, I like closing all these extra things that get open personally. And refresh this. Schedule for deployments is done. And now I can actually deploy that new asset. And here's where it's going to ask you. And so a lot of times I know, like when you go and you replace a user's laptop, they don't always want to give up their old one right away. And so I'm like, I want to make sure everything's been transferred off properly before I give it to you. I'm sure you've all heard that before. I know when I did it, I heard it lots. So you have this question you can answer is the asset reclaimed, yes or no? So if you say yes here, it will take that old asset back and put it back into stock for you. If you say no here, it will trigger another task to remind you basically to reclaim that asset. So it does kind of give you that safety mechanism. If you don't actually bring that laptop back, the technician's not going to have this request closed out until they get that back. I've known users before too, and I'm sure you all have, that keep those old laptops forever. And again, if you're leasing or whatever and you want to properly dispose, all this kind of good stuff, you don't want that hardware sitting around there indefinitely. So I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. I reclaimed this. I'm the technician. I deployed this. I deployed this to Candace, and I brought back her all one. I'm going to go ahead and close this task. And then I can see here that that has now closed complete. Oh, it still has collect old asset. So it did still ask me. Oh, it's already closed. Sorry. It did create that task. I forgot. Sorry. It did create that task. I thought it went to close complete. Okay. So did you reclaim that aged asset? Yes, I did. It's already set to yes. I can just close that. And there we go. So now we finished one of the two. Now we can come over here and cross our fingers this demo worked properly. And we see here Candace in use. This is the one we refreshed out. We can refresh this. And we can see now. Oh, sorry, I got to scroll over. Sorry. We'll back up here a little bit to Candace. We can see that her old laptop has gone to in-stock pending disposal. And what was the new one we used? 2 something. I think it was 2 something.
John, I have a question right here. By default, by out of box, when you do not reclaim that, when you say no, that means that that device will remain in that person's name and in use until you reclaim it, correct?
Yeah, let's test that. Let's test that, shall we? Because we have another one.
Don, it's 502 on the asset tag, by the way.
Yeah. The one we assigned to the new one was the 7450 was to Candace here. So it's assigned the one that we were flashed out. So it did that on the back end. And then you're right. Is this 502 we're doing now? I can't remember. I don't know. That's the choice of doing all these demos, you forget. All right, so now we're going back again. Let me back up so we start from fresh. Everybody knows what I'm doing. Okay, I want to work on the second piece. Remember that first refresh we put through was for 2 devices, right? So we finished that one on that request. Now we're going to do the second one, and we see it's still request 27, and we come into our asset tasks, and we can still see we have this one. So we're back to confirm asset here, still open. So this is confirming that I am going to now deploy. I go to the shelf, I grab one. Which one did I grab? Did I grab 237? Yes. Did I not grab 237? I can change that. No, I didn't grab 237. I grabbed 201, 203. I change that, and I'm good to go, and I can close this task. And then we can see that this is now going to move to the next one, just like we did last time. Prepare asset for deployment, right? Which asset am I refreshing? It only has the one. Remember, this had the 2 before, and now it's down to just the 1 left. Who is it for? Charles Beckley. Okay, close that. We can now see it's gone to, where are we here? Here we go. Schedule the deployment of the new asset. So we're going to go ahead and schedule this with Charles tomorrow. I'm going to close this. And then I'm going to refresh this. And now we have to deploy this to Charles. Right? Did we deploy it? Yes. Did we reclaim it? So this is what you're talking about, Rebecca. So no, we're not going to reclaim this. I'm going to close this task. We've deployed the new one, right? So we're deploying 203. So let's take a look before we do this. Hang on. Let's take a look. No, not that screen. Too many screens open now. Way too many screens open. All right. Close you. All right. Let's do this one. All right. So it was 501, right? Charles Beckley. That is the one that's being refreshed right now. So we can see that it's in use still. Okay, so we can just minimize.
That's the old device, even though it says eligible for refresh false.
Yes. That's just because it's demo data, and I put this
Gotcha,
demo
gotcha.
data in yesterday. So
Okay.
I needed data that I knew what it was. So
Okay.
yeah.
So it stayed in use assigned to that person until such, and that other task will stay open until such time that it is recovered. So when they drop it, they swing by the stockroom and they drop it off, somebody assigns
Have
it
to
into.
finish this task yet. So I think where
Gotcha.
we hadn't hit save yet. I got too many things open.
Okay.
Way too many things open. I don't know where I am now. This is 27. Deploy asset still open. Okay, so we got to deploy this to Charles. We're going to say reclaim no, close this task. Okay, and so 203 is the new one, 501 is the old one. So here's 501. Still says in use, Charles. All right, and let's go. Okay, and now we can also see 203, the new one, in use to Charles. So he's got the both of them. So he's got the old one and the new one assigned to him because that reclaim task has not finished, right? So you still see here we have the collect aged asset is still open. So yeah, we wait for Charles to do his thing. This stays open. Again, you're going to want to obviously do a little bit of modifications to the flow, and you're going to have these assigned to people, right? So it's going to sit in whoever's queue, right? Assigned to them until it's going to stay open until they actually get it back. So that's a good way of making sure you're getting these old ones back. And then once you do get it back and you change this to reclaim yes, close this task. And now, oops, it disappeared. I must have a filter on there. Oh, it's not assigned to him anymore. That's why, right?
It worked. It worked.
It worked, exactly. It disappeared here, right? So now if we were to go, let me just clear my filters here. And we'll just find that one. Oh, I should probably put a 5 in there. Right, I think it was 501. Yeah, is in stock pending disposal. All right, and so these are why using these flows is, and so now it's in stock pending disposal, meaning you can kick off your disposal order and dispose of those properly, right? It's in the right state and substate to be able to know that you can actually go ahead and now trigger a disposal order and follow through that flow. So that's why we recommend obviously using the flows that come with HAM because they all tie into each other, right? All of the stock rooms, the service. So today we talked what? Sourcing, we talked service locations, we talked distribution channels, we're talking disposal flow. All of these things all tie together to make it, we did the request flow. So start to finish, right? Of requesting all the way through to disposing.
Hi, Sean.
Yes.
I'm Verna here again. Okay, so this is refresh and assigning to for a single user or a single instance. I don't know if those are the correct words, but what if, say now, we need to we're at the 5-year mark and we need to do a refresh for over say 1,000 computers, but we have
that's
to.
A lot.
I mean, it's reality though sometimes.
It is. It absolutely is. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say 100, and then we have to do that refresh. We need to trigger a notification to the analyst to say we're at our request refresh stage. beginning preparation to purchase. But for us in doing so, we have to provide our budget team with all the old serial numbers.
Okay.
Is there a way to trigger that and say, here are your old serial numbers that's at the end of your 5-year refresh mark?
It depends on where you want it, when you want it triggered. Yeah, absolutely, you can trigger this stuff. It's just not it's all going to be custom, right? And there's nothing going to trigger automatically. But yes, it can absolutely be triggered. Depends on when and where you want to trigger it, right? So if I'm in, right, you could trigger it at the point here where I'm pulling, right? You can pull it in as part of the flow. Actually, let's just do this. Let me just put some on here and I'll show you. Starts with. So, oh, sorry, somebody had the question about PO before and being able to filter on PO. Yeah, you would do that right here, right? Or depending on what field. Oh, purchase order line. I thought there was a purchase order field. Should be able to see it somewhere in here. You may have to go. You should be able to add that. I'm not positive where this is pulling from. I thought it was pulling from the
PO number.
Oh,
There's a
I
PO.
put purchase. I put the PO. Oh, yeah, sorry. I was putting purchase order. Yeah, PO number. There we go. And so you could do it by PO number. Anyway, so back to Verna's question, right? So Verna, I could pick, let's say 5, 6, 7. So you're going to refresh these ones, right? Whoa, what did I just do? All right, let me add these. So you could trigger something on the flow. That kicks off right now. And I did that.
Sean, so is this at the
It's a
service
rhythm level.
catalog?
Yeah, you could.
No, I meant like not at the rhythm level. It's like I thought the whole refresh thing was how do you refresh computers when you get to that 3-year mark? Because I think you did say refreshes at the 3-year mark. And so we have like a bunch of them that needs to be refreshed. I thought there was something where I say, okay, you'll send a task or something to the hardware asset manager to say, hey, you're at like a year before, 6 months before.
Well, you could look at some of these ones then potentially. So you've got your assets eligible for refresh. So if you've set that useful life flag, right, all the ones that get triggered are going to sit here. So you can see all the ones that are eligible for refresh. You can see all the ones here that are warranty expiring, right? And if you're doing it for budgeting purposes, if you're at the pre-ordering and pre-requesting phase, and you need to go through for budget approval or planning approval, etc., you can use these types of reports, right? Where I can see I've got mobile devices, computers, printers, servers, right? So if I want to just see my computers that are eligible for refresh right here, there we go. Those are all the ones that are eligible for refresh.
Okay. And then if we have to do like a automatic task to alert the person who would be responsible for that, that would be something that we have to
I would say you want to set
customize.
up like a report, right? You could just take this report and you could basically trigger an email generated report to them or something like that. To say, hey, these ones need to be refreshed. It's not going to trigger an approval to proceed unless you put a request into the approval flow, but
right. No, not that stage yet. So they're going to get this report and then they will need to move with the process to go through.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so
we
you
want
can
to let them
absolutely
know.
schedule those things. You can absolutely schedule reports to be emailed. You can I don't know what else you could do. Could you do you could probably do notifications as well too, because this eligible for refresh, right? If you remember, that flag gets set by a scheduled job, right? So you could have something that when that scheduled job runs, right, it then triggers a notification to that person. So there's a bunch of things you can do, a bunch of different ways you could get that data to them. It's not going to do it out of the box, but
Right.
absolutely there's
Understood.
ways to do it. Absolutely. It
Okay.
depends on where, right? It depends on where and when you want to trigger it. So again, you can trigger it here, or as I was showing you in the request phase. I don't think I have it open anymore. Like as soon as that requested item gets triggered, it could trigger a notification at that point as well too, right? So you just have to look and talk and work with your developers to modify and make those changes to the flow. That's why when we were looking at, right, we're looking at this is kind of just a template, right? You can definitely take this and expand it off, right? And you should look at all the different processes in, review, refresh, proposal, right? This would be different for your organization, right? Because it would start probably earlier, right? And the trigger would be, it would be earlier. You would you would want to email or notify somebody in finance ahead of time that these are coming available. So do you want to suppress? And so your trigger would be different, right? It wouldn't necessarily be a time trigger. So you want to look at maybe modifying this and saying, okay, yeah. And your review might be beforehand, right? Rather than after, whatever. So.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. Got it. Thanks.
I'm trying to think if I wanted to show anything else. Where are we on
I do have
time?
one question for you, Sean.
Sure, go ahead, Chris.
So, the one thing I don't understand with the refresh, and to me, it's one of the harder workflows, more complicated, we'll say, more than harder, is the sourcing task.
Yes.
I get it in a way that it's part of the request, but with that being a task outside of your workflow task, to me it adds confusion rather than it being part of the flow, the workflow itself. Does that make sense? Is there anything being looked at to potentially make that more of the workflow than a catalog task?
I honestly, I don't know. Whether I don't know if we still had a vet here or
Because
not.
you have to do this catalog task
Yes.
before it kicks off the workflow.
Yes.
So to me, I find it to be an area that sometimes gets kind of missed because of that. Or it's a gap area. Maybe that's the best way to say it. It's a gap.
Hey, Chris, when you get the sourcing task, that comes from a split on the catalog item, whether you're going to source this directly from procurement or you're going to actually take a transfer order from a stock room. So that's built into the out of the box catalog workflow. There is a branch there because the question comes up, do you want to source? Do you want to purchase this or do you want to transfer an asset? And when you make that choice there, that's where the flow splits between going through the procurement process for sourcing that, or do we have an asset in a room, let's say we have 100, we'll use Vernon's example, have 100 workstations in a location that's a stock room. You may want to take one that's already there and then deploy it. You don't have to then order it. So that's where the split comes in the catalog flow.
Right. There's that option as well too. But I think I see where Chris is coming from too, right? He's thinking about the process of, okay, we budgeted to replace 1,000 assets, right? Or 1,000 laptops. We go ahead, we're procuring those, right? It could be part of the separate process, right? And that depends. This is where it comes down to having to think about modifying your process. Do you need to have the source request task in here? No, you don't. You can, right? You can copy the flow and make some changes to that flow yourself to get rid of this particular step. If you're going ahead and saying processing the order for 1,000 separately. You've already got, that's a separate process for you guys potentially, right? Where you pre-order 1,000, then you go through this request flow and just pick them because you want to, you already have them in stock. You already know you have them in stock. You already know which ones you're doing where, right? You just have to change that flow again. This is what, how I was just showing you out of the box today, but yeah, you can tweak it to how your organization manages the process. Right. The thought of this one is, okay, I'm an asset analyst and part of my job is to make sure I'm trying to refresh assets on a fairly regular basis.
Right.
It's not kind of this pre-approval budgeting ordering process, right? That's not what the thought process was, I believe, behind how do I refresh a bunch of assets in bulk.
Yeah, and I, like I said, basically I get the reason why. It just makes it, to me, that much more convoluted, more complicated, compared to other workflows where it just goes straight into the workflow, whatever request you're doing.
Yeah. So again, it all depends on how you manage, like, because you guys are probably pre-approving and pre-ordering all your stuff, if I'm right? So he's kind of a
Yeah,
pain.
yeah. The majority of our stuff that we would be pulling from local inventory anyhow.
Right.
It would be very minimal that we would be sourcing out through. So, I mean, maybe that is an option, that we just remove the sourcing task from our workflow to simplify it, since everything would be coming from just out of inventory anyhow.
You could absolutely, and it would help automate. You can help automate if you have that standard process and those those devices are already there. You should be able to kind of
Right.
even put some more automation behind the system, right?
Right. Yeah. Because having the the pre-planning to do the purchasing ahead of time, to have your inventory on hand, that's the benefit. So maybe that's the option that we look at, is removing that sourcing task and just jumping straight into the workflow. But that's an idea.
And I can't remember who was talking about, the other procurement system. That's again the same concept, right? Where if you want to, you probably have a very similar process to what Chris is talking about here, where you probably pre-order all your stuff and then do the refresh, right? So again, as I said, when they developed this, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe the persona they were thinking about wasn't like the big organizations that are pre-budgeting, pre-planning, pre-ordering. It was more, I'm a hardware asset analyst, and part of my monthly duties is to look for assets that need to be refreshed and work on getting those refreshed. And that would be who this particular flow was. The base flow was designed for that persona.
Right, Sean, and I think it also based on the company and the checks and balances, because this task we would have different the task going out to different
Correct.
personas
Different
or
departments,
people,
yeah,
different
people
departments, and this is critical because we have each person need to get a catalog task, and that's how we would track and follow that, because we source from different, and even if it's a purchase order, we bring in the purchase order, we would still need to source from that particular purchase order or something. In the case where you showed, I don't know if it was in the refresh, where we're going to distribute or deploy this particular from a particular purchase order. So all of these things are critical. So I think it's based on
exactly. You have to base it off of a like you have to still have a standard, and we absolutely understand every organization is different, right? Every organization different in size, different in structure, different approval processes, different everything, right? That's why they moving everything to Flow Designer, so you can make those changes fairly easily, because there is no one way that I guarantee no organization does it the same way, right? So
repeat that line. It's a very true line in the real world.
It absolutely is. It absolutely, you think about it, some hardware asset management departments, you could have one hardware asset manager managing 20,000 assets. Another company, you've got 5 people, right? It's a big difference, different responsibilities, different jobs. You've got don't have procurement in some organizations, and you do have in others, right? I've seen things that, yeah, we've seen a lot where there's 500 levels of approval. You have to get even a mouse approved. You have places where you can order $10,000 pieces of equipment without approval. I've seen companies that have dual laptops as a standard for every employee, which because they don't want their employees don't want to carry their laptops with them back and forth to home. Like I've seen everything. So it's quite interesting out there. So yes, this flow is kind of that base that you, as much as we don't want to talk about, we don't like the word saying customization, you still have to, right? You still have to do things like Verna was saying. You still want that assigned to, right? Who is this catalog tasking assigned to? You have to modify the flow to get that. So
yeah, because some like us, we have an overall policy and procedure that certain things that we have to follow, like checks and balances. We can have one person doing the person who doing the receiving cannot be doing the installation and so forth. So we have to create different tasks.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. So that's where you do have to customize the flows. So, yeah.
Hey, Sean, this is Jen from NCR Atleos again. So couple quick questions. One, are there any, do you happen to know if there's any user communications that are triggered throughout this process automatically?
That's a good question. I don't think so, but I would have to check.
That's okay. Yeah. I didn't know if you happen to know off the top of your head.
I don't think there is.
Okay. And I was just thinking specifically about your, I was laughing about your example of, equipment in the drawer, right?
Yeah.
Send your stuff back. Yeah. So, oh shoot, I had another question, but I lost it.
There's an approval email that went out, but that's it.
Well, that would make sense. Yeah. Okay.
There's the approvals that went out, but that's it. Nothing went out to the users. So it doesn't look like anything was triggered.
Okay.
It could be, though. It could be, right? Again.
For sure. Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then I apologize if I missed it. For SAM, for the asset recovery, and I'll say switching of assets, right? They're getting a new replacement asset. Is there any flows in there that are automatically triggered associated with software assets that might be assigned to that device?
Not
software allocations, not in the flow.
Okay. Flow, but
okay.
The other flow that does have that, and we haven't.
I think it's PC recovery flow does.
Yeah, it's
that I know. Yeah,
this one here, reclaim assets.
Reclaim the assets.
If you're a ham and SAM customer, it kind of becomes more automated. If you're ham only, the ham pieces are automated, the SAM pieces are manual. If you're SAM only, the ham pieces are manual and the SAM pieces are automated. But if you have both, they're kind of more automated. And so again, you could even think about potentially triggering and making a modification to that, and triggering the reclaim flow instead of.
Yeah, but this wouldn't really be a reclaim. It would be a swapping, because you're going to reallocate from the old machine to the new machine. So that's
in that case, yeah, depending on what you're doing.
That's more like the incident asset action.
Correct.
Right. I was thinking the same thing, Chris. Yep.
It's a swap. Yeah, it's a swap, not a reclaim. Yeah, this is the only one that I know of that does any SAM-based stuff.
You could also
obviously
use
those things could be built in. Yeah.
Yeah. Use ECM. There's jobs in ServiceNow to do a 30-day swipe through ECM to get any software that hasn't been used, and you can reclaim it that way. That's the second way to get harvesting on the software for those assets.
Yeah, and the other good thing is, when, in terms of the SAM piece, so now all those assets, remember, they were in pending disposal, you run through the disposal order process, it's going to switch the asset to retired. When the asset switches to retired, right, the CI is going to switch to retired, which is going to trigger the scheduled job to purge the software installation records from the SAM tables. So it's at least going to purge those SAM records when you've
Right.
gone through that disposal process. It should be purging that. So again, it's going to help with your counts. It's not going to take into account what you're probably thinking about, which is, okay, we got the new laptop. We need to know which software, right? Did Jen have on her laptop so we can get it on this laptop if you're not running through standard images, of course, right? And then
Correct.
you need
Or
to get
which-
that all provisioned. That part isn't factored into the flow. No.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of what I figured. Right. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you'd want to expand out that one task, whatever that was called. What I did 27.
It
Where
would be
you're
nice.
preparing it for deployment.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be nice if it did the same thing as asset action though with incident, where it would automatically move those
Swap.
allocations, so you don't have to go in and
Yes.
and reallocate for the new device. But also discovery.
That's a great idea, Chris and Jen, for the ideas portal, right? And
Yep.
that's something
Yeah.
that I think we're going to bring. You guys probably know about the ideas portal, but we're definitely going to have to bring that up in one of our office hours, because it's more and more people need to know about it. Because again, the upvotes do get converted, right? If it gets enough votes, it gets in front of the developers saying, okay, we need to work on this now rather than later. So,
Right.
yeah.
Just remember, not all software is transferable either. Just remember that. Not all software is transferable. OS has to stay on the system, but some software licenses don't even allow you to move
Correct.
from one machine to the other. Just
Oh,
keep that in
no, I'm well familiar. Yep. Yep. Thanks. Got it.
Yeah. That's lovely joys of software licensing use rights.
So wouldn't it create, Sean, wouldn't you say it would be better to do a reclaim? So we reclaim, it goes back in.
No, not necessarily.
Because if
Not necessarily, no, because as Jen was saying, you're going to be redeploying the software, which is different, right? So and you'd have different considerations too. You'd have to probably look at each software, because some of your software may be device based, like Philip was talking about, right? Some software can't be moved from device to device, or some can't. So if you did have, say, for example, a device-based software, you'd want to change the allocation within the SAM to the new device. Or user-based, you just want to make sure you have the software on there so the user can get access to it. So it shouldn't be an issue there. So you don't necessarily want to do a reclaim where it's going to purge everything, because the reclaim is going to purge your hardware allocations and user allocations. So the person isn't losing the right to use the software. It's just transferring to a new device if it needs to be transferred, or if it stays with the user, it stays with the user. So there's a couple things to think about. So the reclaim is just going to purge all of your allocations, which you don't want, because that user's still here. Yeah. Okay. And again, it all depends on what flows you guys, and what stage of maturity is your organization. Some organizations aren't at the point where they're refreshing assets, right? They're doing on a 1 by 1 basis. They're not doing bulk refreshes. So it all depends on where you are in that maturity, right? And some aren't as advanced. They can get it automated, right? We can work on getting it automated, but some just aren't there yet.
Yeah, so we do bulk refresh on a regular basis, because we purchase we have like over 20,000 users. So
yeah,
we're constantly doing bulk refresh.
Constantly doing it, exactly.
If
Constantly
we're doing
managing it.
bulk
Yeah.
refresh, how do you add up for the software?
The software would be, you'd have to think about what the process is and trigger off maybe a couple tasks. That's what I would suggest, is that the where did that request 27 go? That was 27 we were working on.
In theory, it just should basically be, an outside process that goes on with end user computing, whereas as they're setting up the device, they're also making sure software is transferred and and communicated software to the SAM team to make sure that they're allocating that way too.
Yeah, I would probably stick it in right here, right? Where you're preparing, this is the prepare asset stage, right?
Mhm.
And part of the tasks that need to be spun off would be like kind of what Chris was saying, right? It depends on the organization and how you do it. You might want to split a couple more tasks in there.
It's more of a process than it is a tool scenario.
Right, it could be, and there might be process. Some organization might be at the process or the procedure level where you have to. Did you check this? Did you check that? Did you check this? If not, it could be. You're right. You said process, right? Where at this stage, the person assigned to is going to be performing whatever the process is to stage that asset. Or you could trigger other tasks if you want to get to that level. Did you check X? Did you check Y? Did you check Z? Right? So.
Oh yeah, I got it. I got what Chris was saying. It's like actually once we get the delivery and we're changing out swapping out the pieces, then we just reallocate at that time.
Right. Right. That's your process. Yeah, exactly. It's part of this preparing stage, right? Because this is the point where you're picking the one you're working on and picking the one you're replacing with, and then you're going to follow through your process. Yeah. And again, you could even change this, right? You could even change this particular task form if you wanted, right? And put a couple little check boxes on there, say, did you check X, Y, Z? Check, check, check. Now I can close it. So you can do a whole bunch of different things, right? Depending on those processes that you have. So again, they won't let you can prevent them from closing this task until they check those boxes of yes, I did this, yes, I did that, yes, I did this.
So Sean, can you hear me? This is Jen.
Yep.
Okay, our company is brand new to this. We've never used this. So if I kick off a refresh like you did, and we have 250 assets in that model, that would need to be replaced, did that do a separate rhythm for each one? Because then basically we're going to have 8 different service techs that will take all of those 250 to separate out among themselves. I just don't know if they're going to like this view of having 250 in this, or is there a different way?
250 asset tasks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 250 different assets in that one model that would be replacing and starting in 2026.
Yeah, I see. It depends. So it's going to stay as one. If you did like we did on the first one on this 27, right? It's going to be one requested item, right?
And there were 2 assets that you picked, right?
Right. So it's one RITM with two devices. So this RITM is going to go through the approval process, right? And you can see there's 2 here. So you're saying to be 200. There'll be 250 on this one RITM. But then once it gets approved, right, then the next flow kicks in, which would create 250 of the confirm assigned asset tasks that would be assigned to whatever group it is. And so they could go and pick, right? They could go pick. So if they were looking at, for example, I'm a technician, right? You've got 8 technicians working on these 250. You'd be probably, their process would be probably to look at, if I go to the right place, to look at these asset tasks assigned to my group, right? And you'd have all of these open tasks, which I don't have any right now, right? For this one here, you'd see basically 250 of these in an open state in which you could go grab one and then start the process. And that's going to be individual, right? So that's going to be individual. This is for asset demo. This is for asset tag 203. And I go ahead and I start refreshing that 203 or whoever.
Okay, so I may have to rethink how I do that, because they're not going to want to go through 250 like that. They're going to want to see the user's location, and based off the user's location, they're going to know which one they need to assign to themselves to work then. So I'm
correct. That's where the prepare and stage is going to be key for them, right? Because this is where you pick, right, which is the tag you're replacing and with which one, right? So this is the key. You want to make sure these 2 are right at that point, right? Because they're just going to grab one, going to go, who's there? Okay, who am I doing? Click. Okay, now I'm doing this.
Hey, Sean, I don't know who spoke, but you could set up routing rules and have assignment groups by location. Then in this way, the assets that are in a specific location get routed to the assignment group based on their location. So you may just have to do a little front end setting up of those assignment groups by locations for your text. And then this way, you won't have a gazillion RITMs for a request or lots of asset tasks under that SC task for the new request. So it's I think
Depending on
in
how you
that
structure
case
the
location,
FAQs.
right? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. It all depends on your process, right? Because obviously, Jen, you have a different process than Verna does, right? So you have to think about how that works for your organization and make it, the key for any of this, if you want those technicians, because you want those technicians doing this process because it's changing the states, it's changing the assigned to properly, it's putting the assets in the right place at the right time for you so you can continue to do your job. So you got to make it easy for them. So if 250 and they're never going to touch it, and they're just going to say, yeah, whatever, right? Then that's not an effective process for you guys. So if you have to modify it, you have to modify it for what works for them. But again, the goal is going to be the new ones go out and get assigned to properly. The old ones come in and get the right state and sub-state so we can get rid of them, right? That's essentially your end goal. And we have full visibility of where they are throughout the process. So, and then doing other things like checking software and stuff like Chris was talking about, right?
So the assigned to would be automatically populated at the request?
When you're pulling this piece, right? So in this case, in this stage right here, where I'm confirming and I'm preparing the asset, it knows that the assigned to from 203 was, I can't remember who it was, right, was Verna. And then when the new one, 501 was assigned to Verna, and it knows the replacement is going to Verna. So it will do that to you. So it would basically, it did that in the demo, right? Where it took this asset, it would assign it to Verna. This one would go in stock and we unassigned Verna after it's been deployed. So it does know that as part of the, right? So if I was to look at 501, right? So if I was to come back in here and take a look at demo tag 501, if I look at the history, right, you see here, it was assigned to Charles and it was in use. Then it went to in stock, pending disposal, and it cleared the assigned to. So that as part of that process. So this was all part of this was triggered by the refresh process. And same thing on the 203, right? Right, you see here it went from reserved. You can see here it was reserved for him as part of this. So it was originally reserved for the ham analyst who made the request. Then when it went through the different phases, it reserved it for him. Then it went to pending install. Then the reserve got cleared, right? Then it got assigned to him. Then its state got changed to in use and substate was cleared, right? So it's doing all of that by just closing those tasks. And that's what you really want. That's the kind of key information you need happening out there when these assets are moving around. The technicians are doing these refreshes and not telling you about it. If they're using the flows, then these fields will hopefully be getting changed. And you still have that full visibility of that asset throughout its life cycle, right? So